Far beyond the clouds, tens of thousands of kilometers away, Zhongluan's colossal black crane mount released a piercing cry, unleashing a tide of searing black flames that surged toward the silver fire raven, hovering over 10,000 feet away. Afterward, the crane cast a wary glance toward the direction where the crimson sun had just detonated, fear lingering in its eyes. Fortunately, it had been pursued this far by the silver fire raven. Otherwise, the shockwaves from that explosion alone would have been nearly unbearable. Facing the incoming black flames, the silver fire raven beat its wings furiously, scattering clusters of silver radiance. Each burst detonated into silver fire, tearing through the advancing black flames. A trace of vigilance crossed the crane's gaze as it sneered. "Give up your pointless struggle. Your master is already dead." The raven faltered for a heartbeat, then shrieked sharply. Silver flames surged around its body, condensing into a massive fireball that blasted forward, swallowing every strand of black flame in its path. The black crane no longer wished to continue the fight. Taking advantage of the obstruction, it dove downward, then abruptly altered its course. Far off, a cloud of black mist billowed into existence. From that mist, Zhongluan stumbled out and landed squarely upon the crane's back as it swept past. "We must flee at once. Hurry," he shouted urgently. The crane dared not hesitate and beat its wings with all its strength, shooting away. At that very instant, countless arcs of golden lightning interwove ahead, more than 10,000 feet away, forming a golden lightning array dozens of feet across. With a thunderous crash, Han Li emerged, gripping an azure longsword crackling with golden lightning, and brought it slashing down toward Zhongluan. Despair flooded Zhongluan's eyes. He had already detonated his bonded treasure, yet it had failed to injure Han Li in the slightest. He grasped at his chest, summoning a translucent, round shield before him, while the remnants of baleful blood chi surged out to form a suit of crimson armor. Before the spirit patterns could fully solidify, the sword had already arrived. A heaven-shaking boom erupted as dozens of golden lightning bolts burst from the crimson shield, lashing the air like divine whips. Crackling thunder rang incessantly, and the stench of scorching flesh spread. A sharp crack followed, the shield shattered, and Han Li's sword descended without pause. A sudden flash of azure light flared at Zhongluan's brow. His copper headgear intercepted the blade, halting it for an instant. Han Li roared as golden scales spread over his arms, forcing the sword down with overwhelming might. Azure lightning poured from the sword's runes to reinforce the strike. "No!" Zhongluan bellowed in fury as the headgear split apart. With no defense left, the longsword cleaved down, splitting Zhongluan's head in two. The black crane shrieked and plummeted toward the sea as if grievously wounded, only to beat its wings at the last moment and flee into the distance. Without waiting for an order, the Essence Fire Raven immediately gave chase. Han Li seized Zhongluan's collar, catching his lifeless body. After probing it with his spiritual sense, his brows knit slightly. Moments later, the shockwaves from the Crimson Sun's explosion arrived. Though diminished to less than 1,000th of their original might, they still swept past like violent gales, leaving Han Li with lingering dread. He had sensed danger only as the black saber exploded. With no time to defend, he had relied on the mantra Treasured Axis to delay the blast, and used his reversal True Axis to escape. Afterward, he tracked Zhongluan's position and pursued him with a lightning teleportation array. Suddenly, black light flashed from Zhongluan's sleeve. A black nascent soul, cloaked in transparency, burst forth and vanished instantly. Yet a thunderous explosion followed, and the nascent soul stumbled out several thousand feet away amid violent spatial ripples. Turning in horror, it saw Han Li staring coldly. A vertical black eye opened on his glabella. The Law Destruction Eye. Despair swallowed Zhongluan whole. Before it could flee again, Han Li slashed through the air. A streak of azure sword light swept over the nascent soul and its cloak, shredding both completely. Even then, Han Li carefully scanned the surroundings with his bright sight spirit eyes. Only after confirming that not the faintest trace of Zhongluan's aura remained, did he withdraw his gaze, stow the storage bracelet, and continue after the black crane. By then, the silver fire raven had already caught the crane, forming a vast ring of silver flames around it. No matter how fiercely the crane struggled, escape was impossible. It could scarcely believe that its master had fallen to such an unassuming youth, yet the truth lay before it. As Hanli closed in, the crane cried out in panic, "Spare me, senior! I am a primordial bird born with mastery over fire laws. Spare my life, and I will serve you. I also know many of Zhongluan's secrets." Hanli ignored the pleas. With one hand forming a seal, he plunged his sword downward. A sword projection over 1,000 feet long erupted forth, piercing straight through the crane's head. The crane howled in agony and crashed toward the sea. Hanli followed, extracting its nascent soul, a tiny black crane trembling in terror. The essence fire raven swooped down, transforming into a fiery silver child that perched on Hanli's shoulder, eyes filled with longing as it gazed at the nascent soul. "You'll have it soon," Hanli said softly. Azure light enveloped the soul as he closed his eyes. When he opened them again, mixed emotions churned within him. The crane's memories held little about Fangpan, yet what fragments there were confirmed that Zhongluan truly hadn't known who had sent Fangpan. Within those memories, Hanli also saw a yellow palace deep in a vast desert, its floor strewn with black chains, origin separation law chains. At the palace's center stood a massive black chair, occupied by a white-cloaked figure whose features remained indistinct. The crane's fear of that figure ran so deep it had scarcely dared to look. After a brief silence, Hanli tossed the nascent soul to the fiery silver child and landed atop the crane's corpse to collect Zhongluan's belongings. The silver child gleefully devoured the soul, its round belly glowing as if a blazing furnace burned within. After extracting the demon core, Hanli saw that the essence fire raven staggered as if drunk, yet their connection assured him it was unharmed. He gathered it up and drew it back into his body. Swallowing a pill, Hanli gazed toward the holy puppet sect in thought. From what he had seen, the sect was likely doomed. Returning would only endanger him further. He had merely been hired as protection, not to die for them, and Zhongluan's intrusion into their restricted grounds ensured further trouble if he went back. As for the reward, he did not regret abandoning it. His spoils from slaying multiple true immortals more than compensated him. With one final glance toward the holy puppet sect, Hanli departed as a streak of azure light vanishing into the horizon. Seasons turned like pages in a scroll, and more than a year slipped past in the blink of an eye. On this day, a streak of azure radiance cleaved the sky and descended upon Crimson Dawn Peak, dispersing to reveal Hanli's figure. He made no effort to hide his presence, and before long, the servants of his cave abode gathered respectfully in the courtyard. Only Meng Yongui and Sun Buzheng were absent. "When did you return, Qianqian?" Hanli asked, his gaze sweeping calmly across the eight before him. "I came back less than a month ago," Meng Qianqian replied. "These are spirit medicine seeds my brother and brother's son obtained. They asked me to deliver them to you." As she spoke, she presented a storage pouch with both hands. Hanli accepted it, then produced 3 more storage pouches with a turn of his palm. "Very well, if you see them again, pass along these spirit stones and pills. As for the rest, distribute these pills among everyone on my behalf." Meng Qianqian received them solemnly. "Yes, Elder Li." "Has anything unusual occurred on Crimson Dawn Peak or within the sect while I was away?" Hanli asked. "Nothing out of the ordinary here, and the sect has been calm as well," Meng Qianqian answered. "However, word has spread that a golden immortal Tao Lord will soon emerge from seclusion to preach the great Tao. The opportunities are extremely limited, generally reserved for direct disciples." A trace of yearning flickered in her eyes. The same longing appeared among the other servants, quickly followed by resignation. As true immortal servants, they knew such an occasion lay far beyond their reach. Hanli regarded them quietly before speaking, his voice steady. "Listening to the preaching of a mighty cultivator is indeed a rare fortune. Yet every person's Tao is different. You may draw insight from others, but in the end, you must walk your own road. To pursue the great Tao, you must carve out your own path. Do you understand?" Meng Qianqian paused, then nodded firmly. The disappointment in the servant's eyes dissipated like mist before the sun. "If there is nothing else, you may all withdraw," Hanli said. Waving a hand, the servants bowed in unison and departed. Hanli remained standing for a moment, then entered his cave abode. After activating every restriction, he proceeded into the secret chamber and sat down cross-legged. With a sweep of his sleeve, 3 storage treasures appeared before him. the spoils taken from the 3 true immortals he had slain at the holy puppet sect. During his return journey, he had lacked the leisure to examine them. Now, at last, curiosity stirred. He opened the first storage bracelet, letting its contents spill forth. After a brief inspection, his brows creased in mild disappointment. These were the possessions of the burly man who had fought him alone, meager indeed. A handful of materials and spirit medicines, several ordinary spirit treasures, a dozen or so immortal origin stones, some spirit stones, and miscellaneous odds and ends. Given such poverty, it was no wonder the man had risked his life on that ubiquitous pavilion mission. Hanli sighed inwardly, then carefully sorted everything before stowing it away. Next came the thin old man's storage treasure. This time, Hanli's eyes brightened. Most of the items within were high-grade materials, several crimson crystals, each the size of a human head, radiated fiery red light like molten metal. They brimmed with dense spiritual chi, and the blazing patterns on their surfaces pulsed with fire attribute law fluctuations, clearly materials imbued with law power. There were also over a dozen treasures, primarily spirit treasures, several vials of pills, more than 500 immortal origin stones, and a vast pile of spirit stones. Hanli stored these away as well, then turned his attention to Zhongluan's bracelet, which he had deliberately saved for last. He had expected wealth, yet the sight before him still left him astonished. Spirit materials and medicines of countless varieties filled the chamber, some carrying distinct law fluctuations. Setting aside the treasures, pills, and scriptures, there were 5,000 to 6,000 immortal origin stones alone. Their radiant glow bathed the secret chamber in shimmering light. Combined with his previous reserves, this fortune would likely sustain his cultivation for centuries to come. Hanli swiftly secured the immortal origin stones, then began to sort through the remaining items at a measured pace. Origin separation treasured scripture, he murmured, pausing as his spiritual sense entered a white jade slip. A realization struck him, and he immediately delved deeper. When he finally removed the jade slip from his forehead, more than 2 hours had passed. The opening section recorded a high-grade, devilish, true immortal cultivation art, the origin separation yin devil arts, capable of reaching the high zenith stage, its rarity no less than his own mantra axis scripture. Yet no matter how profound it was, Hanli had no intention of abandoning his established path. What truly drew his interest were the secret techniques in the latter portion, especially one that allowed a cultivator to seal themselves and conceal their aura entirely. Still, these techniques were exceedingly profound, far beyond what he could master in the short term. He put the jade slip away and continued. What is this? Hanli suddenly noticed an odd yellow sphere among the treasures. About half a foot across, it was engraved with profound yellow patterns that lent it an air of mystery. Several white talismans clung to its surface, forming a seal. Previously buried beneath other materials, it had escaped his notice. It emitted no aura, no spiritual fluctuation, giving no hint of being a treasure at all. He examined it closely, yet discerned nothing. After a moment's thought, he extended his spiritual sense. The instant it touched the sphere, the talismans flared with brilliant white light, forming an invisible array that repelled his probe. Interest sparked in Hanli's eyes. The talismans were indeed ingenious, but they had clearly been applied in haste. With his expertise, removing them posed little difficulty. Forming hand seals, he sent incantation after incantation into the talismans, then exhaled a surge of azure flames that enveloped the sphere. Dull thuds sounded in succession as the talismans shattered into specks of white light, swallowed by the flames. At once, rings of spirit patterns surfaced on the sphere. Beams of yellow light burst forth, dazzling like a newborn sun. The chamber's restrictions reacted instantly. Azure runes surged across the walls, forming barriers of light, yet the yellow radiance pierced through them with ease. Startled, Hanli hastily activated every restriction in the cave abode, layers of multicolored light sealing the space. The yellow glow continued to expand, breaching several layers before finally being contained. A faint crack rang out. The sphere bulged and writhed, swelling rapidly. In mere breaths, it transformed into a yellow-robed, middle-aged man, dignified and authoritative, appearing in his 30s, an immortal puppet. The puppet's earthy yellow complexion gleamed faintly like metal, exuding an immortal aura. Much like a humanoid immortal treasure, reminiscent of Taoist Xie's former body. Han Li suppressed his excitement, his gaze lingering on the yellow robe. The patterns upon it were unmistakably similar to those he had seen on puppets of the Holy Puppet sect. His thoughts flashed back to his first encounter with Zhongluan outside that sect's restricted grounds. Realization dawned. This must have been the prize Zhongluan risked his life to obtain. Han Li had always held a keen interest in puppets. If this truly was a true immortal stage puppet, its value alone was staggering. Without hesitation, he cast an incantation seal into its body. Twin points of light ignited within the puppet's eyes as a layer of yellow radiance spread over its form. In the next instant, a vast mountain-like aura erupted outward, causing the surrounding space and the entire cave abode to tremble violently. Han Li appeared composed as he observed the changes, yet beneath that calm exterior, his heart churned like a storm-tossed sea. The disturbance lasted no more than a fleeting instant before vanishing without warning. The radiance on the puppet dimmed, and the vast aura that had surged forth dissipated as though it had never existed. Han Li released a long breath, shock flickering through his eyes. The aura that had erupted moments ago was terrifying beyond measure. Though he could not discern its exact depth, he was certain it surpassed the true immortal stage by a wide margin. Suppressing the surge of excitement in his heart, he hastily formed another hand seal. Yet no matter how he urged it, the puppet remained utterly still, offering no response. After pondering for a moment, Han Li closed his eyes and sent his spiritual sense into the puppet to probe its interior. Sometime later, he withdrew his consciousness and opened his eyes, uncertainty etched upon his face. Though he had never handled an immortal puppet before, his mastery of puppetry allowed him to locate its core region with ease. To his surprise, that area was completely empty. Moreover, the puppet lacked any proper energy source. The earlier reaction had clearly been triggered by nothing more than a trace of residual power left within its body. From his estimation, activating this puppet would require a staggering amount of immortal origin stones. At that moment, inspiration struck. Han Li flipped his palm, producing the golden sphere that contained Taoist Xie's core. Forming a seal, he sent an incantation into it. In a flash of golden light, the sphere transformed into a palm-sized golden crab. The crab clutched its head with its pincers, shook itself groggily, then struggled upright with unsteady movements. Turning toward Han Li, it spoke sluggishly. "What is it, fellow Taoist Han? Why have you?" Its voice abruptly cut off as it twisted around, staring fixedly at the yellow-robed puppet behind it. "That is an immortal puppet, and a linked puppet at that." Taoist Shi muttered, golden light blazing within its eyes. With visible excitement, it leapt from Han Li's hand onto the puppet, scuttling over its surface while probing it eagerly with its pincers. Han Li remained silent, allowing it to examine the puppet at length. Only after a full quarter-hour did Taoist Xie finally stop. Turning back, it asked with clear excitement in its voice, "Where did you obtain this immortal puppet, fellow Taoist Han? This is a puppet of extremely high caliber." "It is a long story," Han Li replied vaguely, "but it should be closely related to a sect known as the Holy Puppet Sect." I have never heard of such a sect," Taoist Shai murmured, already returning its attention to the puppet. "Earlier, you mentioned a linked puppet, Brother Shai. What exactly does that mean?" Han Li asked. "Linked puppets are exceedingly rare," Taoist Shi explained. "Ordinary puppets have fixed strength once refined, with little room for growth. Linked puppets are different. Their combat power depends on the user's spiritual sense and their affinity with the puppet. In simpler terms, they function much like a treasure." Han Li nodded slowly. "You seem very interested in it. Is this something you can use?" "I cannot say for certain yet," Taoist Shi replied. "But this is an earth attribute puppet. Normally, only those cultivating earth attribute arts can wield it. If one achieves peak affinity, it could display power at the mid-golden immortal stage." Han Li frowned slightly. "But you wield lightning?" "Indeed, I cannot use it," Taoist Shi confirmed calmly. A trace of disappointment flickered across Han Li's eyes. Though his spiritual sense was more than sufficient, his lack of earth attribute cultivation meant he could never draw out the puppet's full strength. After a moment of silence, Taoist Xie suddenly spoke again. "That said, if given the proper environment and sufficient resources, it may not be entirely impossible." Han Li's eyes lit up at once. What do you need, Brother Xie? I will prepare everything. If I succeed, I would stand beside you as a golden immortal ally, Taoist Xie said. First, I require a lightning array. Its structure is not complex, but its core must provide a continuous source of lightning power. That will determine success or failure. Additionally, I will need a vast quantity of immortal origin stones and lightning attribute top-grade spirit stones, so the process is never interrupted. As it spoke, Taoist Xie spat out a small golden jade slip, which Han Li caught and inspected. The array formation recorded within was indeed straightforward, though maintaining it would consume nearly 1,000 immortal origin stones along with an enormous quantity of lightning attribute materials. For Han Li, however, the cost posed no real issue. 7 days at most, Han Li said after brief consideration. I will have everything prepared. Taoist Xie was unsurprised. It seems you have prospered greatly since returning to the Immortal Realm, fellow Taoist Han. I will rely on you then. Several days later, the secret chamber was filled with dense purple vein patterns engraved into the floor, forming a massive circular lightning array. The yellow-robed puppet lay at its center, surrounded by 8 pillars of lightning restraining wood etched with array markings. Purple lightning flickered intermittently across their surfaces. At the heart of the array rested a round purple crystal, the clam jewel Han Li had obtained from the giant clam in the thunderstorm sea. Han Li stood at the chamber's entrance with Taoist Xi perched upon his shoulder. Forming seals with both hands, he sent incantations into the crystal. Thunder roared as the array blazed to life, countless arcs of purple lightning surging upward like a writhing nest of serpents. In an instant, the chamber became a world drowned in lightning. You have done exceedingly well, Taoist Xi praised. That crystal holds astonishing lightning power. After Han Li explained its origin, Taoist Xi nodded. With this, my chances rise from 30% to 50%. Leaping forward in a streak of golden light, Taoist Xie entered the array. Lightning from all directions converged upon it, golden lightning erupting across its form. Soon it was engulfed within a sphere of blazing light, which plunged into the puppet's chest. The puppet shuddered violently as yellow radiance burst forth, lightning clashing and exploding throughout its body. The entire chamber trembled under the violent fusion. Han Li watched from the entrance, anticipation shining in his eyes. According to Taoist Xie, the process could take decades, even centuries. With the clam jewel and his vast reserves prepared, there was no lack of support. May this succeed, Han Li murmured. He sealed the chamber and departed, retreating to another room to sit in meditation. With Taoist Xi's matters settled, it was time to consider his own path. His immortal origin stones could sustain him for centuries, yet the encounter with Zhongluan had planted deep unease in his heart. Though Zhongluan had fallen, the memories of the Black Crane revealed that the danger was far from over. Whether within the Holy Puppet Sect or beyond, his enemies would not simply vanish. Even within the Blaze Dragon Dao, safety was not guaranteed. If Zhongluan's master or other formidable foes came seeking him, Han Li would need to be ready. The road ahead remained fraught with unseen peril. Chapter 309, Progressing to the Late True Immortal Stage. With his thoughts settled, Han Li swept his sleeve through the air, and the remaining lengths of lightning-restraining wood, along with several lightning attribute spirit materials, appeared neatly before him. About a month later, Han Li sat alone in the main hall of the courtyard outside his cave abode, calmly sipping spirit tea, his expression thoughtful. Moments later, Meng Qianqian entered and bowed. Han Li spoke solemnly, entrusting her with an important task and handing her a storage tool. After inspecting its contents and hearing his instructions through voice transmission, her expression turned grave. She swore to complete the mission, even at the cost of her life. Han Li reminded her to act cautiously and in secrecy. With a respectful curtsy, she departed as a streak of crimson light, while Han Li soon followed as an azure streak. Only after 2 months did he return to Crimson Dawn Peak. During that time, he discreetly sold most of the gains from the Holy Puppet Sect for immortal origin stones and purchased vast quantities of pill ingredients. After sealing his cave abode, he prepared to enter seclusion, but first detoured to his medicine garden. There, he discovered the seedling grown from the primary bean had risen several inches taller, its growth now much faster, golden patterns darkening along its stem. Whether this mutation was a blessing or bane remained uncertain. Recalling the Tao warriors he had witnessed, Han Li felt anticipation stir. He handed the heaven controlling vial to the giant ape puppet before returning to the secret chamber. With all matters settled, Han Li exhaled softly, producing a silver pill cauldron and placing it at the chamber's center. With a sweep of his sleeve, the Essence Fire Raven appeared as a fiery silver figure. Having absorbed the black crane's nascent soul, its aura was stronger and its expression livelier. Understanding its task, it circled the cauldron and unleashed roaring silver flames beneath it as Han Li calmly prepared the pill ingredients and sat down cross-legged. Several years passed in silence. The flames finally subsided, and the Essence Fire Raven perched obediently on Han Li's shoulder. Though weary, Han Li opened the cauldron with a seal, releasing a rich medicinal fragrance that filled the chamber. With a satisfied nod, he drew out longan-sized white pills, mist curling around them like clouds. They were stored into jade vials, more than 100 already lined, beside him. Declaring the amount sufficient, he stowed everything away and entered meditation, preparing for deep seclusion. Over 200 years slipped by. Crimson Dawn Peak remained sealed as unprecedented snowfall blanketed the Bell Toll Mountain range. When clear skies finally returned, Han Li's servants cleared the snow in silence. Suddenly, the peak trembled as a pillar of golden light shot into the heavens, stirring world origin chi for thousands of kilometers. Multicolored spiritual light rained down before the phenomenon gradually faded. The servants returned to work, long accustomed to such signs, knowing they heralded Han Li's cultivation. Within the secret chamber, Han Li was bathed in golden radiance, 24 immortal acupoints shining like stars across his body. His aura surged vast and renewed. He had advanced to the late true immortal stage. 2 centuries of pill consumption had finally opened his remaining acupoints, though the process had grown increasingly slow. As the light faded, Han Li gazed at the mantra treasured axis behind him. The Eye of Truth rested shut, its Time Tao runes restored, yet their number remained fixed at 108. He understood the reason and accepted it calmly. Sensing the immense power coursing within, Han Li smiled faintly and remained seated. Producing the primordial Fey Beast's eye, he accepted the heaven-controlling vial from the giant ape puppet and swallowed the drop of green spirit liquid within. The mantra-treasured axis blazed to life, Time Tao runes flashing as golden ripples flooded the chamber. Time itself seemed to slow. Every sound rang clear. Though blood drenched his body, Han Li remained unmoved, wholly immersed as he once more sought to grasp the profound laws of time. Han Li's eyelids trembled, and his eyes flew open as 2 streaks of golden radiance burst forth. His hands moved like flowing water, seals forming in rapid succession before his palms joined, fingers extending upward like a sword pointed to the heavens. Behind him, all 108 Time Tao runes upon the mantra treasured axis flared to life in unison. Golden light surged between his palms, coursing toward his fingertips, where a translucent golden thread, fine as a human hair, slowly stretched forth. Yet it extended barely an inch before bursting apart with a dull thud, scattering into motes of light. The glow in Han Li's eyes faded. He glanced down at his blood-stained robes and let out a bitter smile. Though he had progressed compared to his previous attempt, he had still failed at the final step of condensing a true time law thread. He reflected that even directly consuming spirit liquid was insufficient to grasp the profundities of time. Perhaps only a Tao pill could truly open that door. At last, he understood why Tao pills were so fiercely coveted within the Immortal Realm. The difference was akin to eating raw herbs versus swallowing a pill refined from them. The latter vastly increased one's chance of comprehending the laws contained within. Fortunately, his wealth allowed him access to rare time law ingredients. Otherwise, this path would have been impossible. With a soft sigh, he swallowed another pill, golden light once more enveloping his body. Half a month later, Han Li emerged from seclusion and headed toward the spirit medicine garden of his cave abode. Spiritual chi surged there, vitality overflowing. Within the field, a giant ape puppet wielded an azure wooden bucket, ladling shimmering blue spirit liquid across the soil. This liquid followed the formula from Taoist Huyan's planting manual. Though Han Li had used it on other herbs rather than the primary bean, his gaze swept across the garden until it fixed upon one corner, and his eyes lit up. The former seedling was gone, replaced by a towering golden plant nearly 10 feet tall. Its trunk bore an earthy yellow hue. Its leaves shone with gold, crisscrossed by countless layered veins that extended through branches and trunk alike. Beneath the dense canopy hung rows of azure bean pods, each finger length, their bulges revealing the beans within. Joy surged through Han Li. He hurried over, circling the plant like a proud farmer, carefully counting the pods. 75 in total. If each held 7 beans, that would yield over 500 Tao warriors, provided nothing went awry. Yet the beans were not fully mature. According to Taoist Hu Yan's writings, once maturity was reached, the trunk and leaves would wither, channeling all nourishment into the beans before the pods split open on their own. As the beans were still immature, Han Li sensed no special aura and could not judge whether this mutation was beneficial. Still, he was unconcerned. The heaven-controlling vial had been involved, and matters linked to it were rarely harmful. After further inspection, he turned to leave, only to pause when he noticed 2 small yellow flowers blooming atop the tree. Frowning slightly, he summoned Taoist Huyan's book and flipped to the relevant page. After a moment, he stowed it away, confusion lingering. The text stated that primary beans flowered only after maturation, and only a single flower should appear. So why were there 2? If this was another mutation, it might greatly increase his production of Tao warriors. Even so, prudence dictated that he consult Taoist Huyan before drawing conclusions. He moved on through the garden, where various rare spirit medicines grew, each emitting a distinct aura. These were ingredients for the Tao pill recipe he possessed, their growth uneven due to differing ages. The oldest were dozens of icy blue plants resembling carved crystal bones, the hidden mist herbs he had once collected from the floating mountain secret realm, many already exceeding 100,000 years in age. Nearby, within a small protective array, grew a dozen newly sprouted, sand-through sunflowers brought back by Meng Yonghui over a century ago. Though slow to grow above ground, their roots thrived beneath the soil and would have overrun the garden without restraint. Gathering even supplementary ingredients for the Tao pill had been perilous. Meng Yonghui had nearly lost his life protecting these plants, saved only by treasures Han Li had bestowed. After being rewarded, he cultivated for over a decade before resuming his search. Meng Qianqian and Sun Buzheng had also returned to Crimson Dawn Peak once each over the past 2 centuries, but Han Li had been in seclusion both times. Meng Qianqian lingered longer, hoping to see him and unwilling to part with Feathery Urn and the Two-Headed Griffin. Though neither had found major ingredients, Han Li was not discouraged. He himself had secured only a few, such as the Thistle Spirit Flower, and the transient guild missions had yielded no responses. After some time, Han Li left for another secret chamber. With a wave of his hand, runes appeared upon the stone door, which slid open to reveal a chamber flooded with purplish golden light and constant crackling thunder. The lightning array within still functioned, though the 8 lightning restraining wood pillars had dimmed from exhaustion. At the array's center sat the yellow-robed immortal puppet, purple lightning arcing across its body, especially its chest. Han Li frowned upon noticing the empty indentation where the purple crystalline sphere had once been. He called out to Taoist Shi through spiritual sense, but received no reply. Choosing patience, he waited. Much later, the lightning upon the puppet's chest converged and vanished, followed by the dissipation of all lightning in the array. The runes upon the wood faded, and the formation fell silent. A burst of golden light bloomed in the puppet's chest, from which a palm-sized golden crab emerged. It crouched briefly before leaping toward Han Li, who caught it in his hand. "How did it go?" Han Li asked. Taoist Xie's aura was now markedly steadier than before, and faint purple veins traced its 8 legs, details visible only upon close inspection.